Hi guys, welcome back. We're back on the lead-free pellet testing again today. So what we've got here are the H&N Field Target Trophy greens. Now the FTTs in the normal lead versions are a very highly regarded pellet on the competition circuit and for pest control. Now these being an alloy of potentially zinc and tin, something along those lines, are completely lead-free. As on the tin here, 100% lead-free. Interestingly, the label that comes on them says they may contain lead. Hopefully they've got about 99% lead and they're actually decent. They're not magnetic like the tips in the Gamo lethals that we tried a couple of weeks ago, and they seem to be a lot softer than these Gamo ones, the gold-plated ones. These gold-plated ones ricocheted really badly. A lot of these lead-free pellets, because they're that much harder, they have a tendency to drill straight through your quarry and they can start coming back at you. I've not used the FTT greens before, but I have used the barracuda greens, which are the slightly larger versions that they do. Now, out to 30 yards, they were actually pretty good in terms of their grouping. In calm conditions, the barracuda greens grouped fairly well. As soon as the wind picked up, they get a little bit sketchy past that. The lack of weight and mass of these lead-free pellets is always going to struggle in windy conditions. However, we're going to start out 25 yards, then we're going to go out to 45. What I also want to do is see if I can collect up some ricocheted ones of these in some foam insulation and see whether or not they're actually deforming on impact. So what we'll do, we'll test them at 25 yards. We're going to ricochet them off of a steel plate into some foam board. That should then tell us whether or not they're still carrying much energy and whether or not if you was to get hit by a ricochet, are you going to get hurt? That's the plan anyway. So I'm going to get some target cards drawn up and I'll see you at the farm. Right, we're here, so we've got the 9015 set up. I've got the big scope on it. I'm going to be shooting at 25 magnification because I can do these first targets and go out 25 yards in the lead line pellet catcher. Now I've partially melted that back down, so we've got some reasonably flat surfaces. We should be able to then see what them pellet strikes look like and whether or not these pellets come out of it fairly unscathed. Got 6 little crosses here on the card just to see if we can establish something of a 0 first. Now the last pellets that we shot through this particular barrel were them plastic ones. I have given it a particularly good clean since, but maybe the first few that we run through of these might be a little bit wayward, so we'll have to be a bit careful. Got my goggles on. It's going into the lead lining, so that should collect the majority of this, but let's get them shot and we'll see how it goes. Right, GoPro's on down the end there now already. Hopefully these won't go mad and shoot through it, so let's see how these load, shall we? That's got in there quite nicely, to be honest. The barracudas that I've used before in a previous barrel loaded quite nicely. So first shot, this was roughly zeroed for them plastic pellets last time, so I don't know whether or not we need to make any adjustments. Just going to go for the middle lower cross on the card, just see whether or not we actually hit backstop. 15mm low and about 5mm to the left, so that's in the target box, which is a good sign. Nothing came back out of it. There's no obvious ricochets out of that lead backstop, so that's as much as we can ask for the moment. Right, so that one's crept up a centimetre, so that's about 5mm below the crosshair. Of course, these are the first ones we've run through this, and them last pellets were them plastic ones, so it may well take a few for these to come on. If there's any remnants of the plastic from them last pellets in the barrel, this should clear them out. Right, going to move to the bottom right of these crosses now. Okay, so it looks like we're about a centimetre low, just a little bit to the left of the actual aim point. Hopefully by the time we get to the last of these crosses on here, we've established something of a 0. There's about 5mm width between the two of those. Don't forget we're only at 25 yards. There's a little bit of a breeze, but it's coming mostly straight towards us, maybe 4 miles an hour at most at the minute. Right, so the 3 of those are basically through the same little hole. That hole is probably 12mm across, so not too bad. They seem to be getting slightly better. I've just made a quick scope adjustment, see if I can bring them up somewhere nearer to the crosshair. Right, bottom left of the crosses now. Okay, that's good. So on that lower left crosshair of the 2, I've just made a scope adjustment and the 2 of those have gone through the same hole. We have got now probably, what's that, about 10 shots through it so far, 11 shots maybe. That's looking encouraging. Right, great. So the 3 of those have gone through the same sort of hole. That hole looks to be around a centimetre across, so that's pretty good. 2 pellet widths. Let's see if we can put this 4th one through there, and then I'll make a scope adjustment just to bring it back to the right a tiny bit. Real. Okay, so the 4 of those have now gone through the same hole. That's pretty good. As I said, we've got about a centimetre group there, so sort of just over 2 pellet widths wide. Right, just giving it another click. So these last two crosshairs on the card, so the top middle and the top left, we should be pretty close to taking the middle out of them crosses. Well, that one went up a bit higher, that's strange. Two of those, they've come in just above the crosshairs slightly, but so far the performance is pretty good actually. I don't think there's a lead-free sort of pellet at all that's going to be incredibly accurate. However, these don't look too bad, certainly usable at the moment. I think we'll get this one shot, we'll run a few out to 45 and then we'll set up the Celotex and I'll show you what I've got planned for that. I'm hoping that I can catch some of the ricochets in the foam boarding. Nice. So we've only actually got one that I would consider a flyer there, and that was on that last cross. That's pretty encouraging. I'm going to grab that card back and we're going to have a look at that. Right, well, I'm pleasantly surprised so far. What's that, 12 mil? 3 of those went through the same hole. That's probably only 9 mil. This was the only one that I considered a flyer, so actually that's pretty good considering the first ones were all pretty tight, even after shooting them plastic pellets. But let's have a look in here. Wow, they're not coming out of there in a hurry. Is there any loose one? Oh look. Well, they've certainly deformed more than them gold ones that we had, them Gamo ones. You can quite clearly see the rifling grooves in the skirt of the pellet. I'll leave that in there and we'll have a good look at that when we get home. In fact, there's a couple in here that have not stayed in the lead, but they have got some reasonable deformation on those, so definitely worth, if you're going to be contemplating shooting lead-free pellets, ironically you're definitely going to want a lead-lined backstop. Anything other than this, they're just going to come back at you all the time. So right, what we do now then, we'll run out to 45 yards quickly. We'll just do a quick group at 45 and then we'll see how dangerous these are when they ricochet. That'd be interesting. Right, so we've just spun round now, we're out at 45 yards. When we were shooting down this way at 25 yards, we were almost shooting into a headwind. Now, of course, we've moved over to the left, so we've got a bit of a side wind. Now, I would expect it's probably 6 to 7 mile an hour gusts at the moment. I'm going to wait until the wind dies off a little bit to try and be as consistent as I can and as fair a test as I can. Standard cross out on the target. We're going to use a 25-yard aim point at the top of the card, and hopefully it should end up dropping to the bigger cross I've drawn in the middle of the card. GoPro's on, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so they're dropping a little bit less than I thought they would do. Of course, they are that bit lighter. Oh, it's quite a spread on those two. As with most things lead-free, short range, generally not too bad, but once you start pushing them ranges out a little bit, often not the best. But the first two of those have got a fair scatter. There's almost a mil dot of drift between the two of those. Okay, so the first 3 of those are on pretty much the same elevation line, which is always a good sign. Hopefully we'll get a few maybe go through the same hole if we're lucky. That's strange, the 2 of those have gone through pretty much the same hole, slightly higher up the card than the others. So do a few more. Shorter ranges, yeah, pretty good. 45 yards in a bit of a breeze, not great. Let's go and have a look anyway. Right, well there we go then, we're down at 45 yards. Sort of 2 distinct groups. Remember, I haven't sorted these are straight from the tin, so it might be worth sorting them. I certainly wouldn't recommend pushing anything lead-free out to really past 30 yards, to be honest, but I'll tell you what, I have seen worse, even in lead pellets. Some of them comedy lead pellets wouldn't even do this, so not quite sure what this one was. Probably a bit of wind, as I've said, the wind's running from right to left, so yeah, not too bad. Not great, but considering they are lead-free, I mean, it's not as bad as I thought they might be. Right, we'll get the old ricochet test set up and I'll see what you think of that. Right, so this is what I'm thinking. We're at 25 yards again. I've just moved the little anvil over, so I'll be shooting from where you are down. The plan is to shoot the anvil square in here and hopefully see if we can collect some ricochets in this. Now, this is inch-thick Celotex type stuff. This is actually Ecotherm, so this has got quite a stout foil on it, and then it's just got the softer PIR type foam inside of it. I'd be fairly sure that if we can catch some pellets in there, if you were close enough, that would break his skin. Don't think it'd be life-threatening or anything mental like that. I mean, you certainly wouldn't want to get one in the eye, but it'd be interesting to see if we can actually play him in off of here into the board. And I've just got a little board here in case anything goes through the back. We're completely enclosed by boarding all around us. None of these pellets are going to go anywhere that we don't want them to. I'm going to be shooting from way back behind where you are right now with my goggles on, just to be on the safe side. So let's get it set up and I'll get the GoPro on. Right, we're at the 25 yards, so I'm going to play him in off of that anvil. Got my glasses on, can't see a thing. This feels a bit dodgy. Right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Where did that go? Right, let's go for a slightly different position. Well, I haven't heard anything come back towards me. I'm going to go and have a quick look. Right, well, this is pretty cool. They've gone through that, through the board. Like, wow, look at this one. Oh, they're still stuck in the back. Wow. Ah, I'll get some decent close-ups of that when we get home. Let's just pull this out the way. Oh, look, you can see another one here. Oh, twig. And of course, that's basically a point-blank ricochet, but it has gone through the board. I mean, looking at how much these have deformed, I don't think they're going to be carrying an awful lot of energy past a few yards. I mean, obviously, you don't want one in your eye at any point, but that's pretty cool. Very interesting. We'll have a better look at these when we get home, so I'll see you there. Right, we're back. Well, the results were, to be honest, as expected. They are pretty accurate at 25 yards. The best group that we shot measured 8mm outside edge to outside edge, and including this one sort of flyer at the top here, that was the largest at 22mm. Now, this was the first slot that we put through. Now, they're still, again, underneath a UK 5p, as are all of these. That one there, 11mm, so pretty good. I mean, if we could do them all at 8mm, that'd be great. That's pretty much the performance that you're going to get from a good quality, fully lead pellet. So, overall, at 25 yards, I'm really quite happy with the performance from those. As expected, past 25 yards, especially in that wind, the group's opened up. Now, at 45 yards, we've got 30mm of elevation change there. And again, one that was pulled right over to the left. Now, of course, the wind was running from right to left. These lighter pellets really aren't great in any windy conditions. They are so susceptible to wind drift. It's almost impossible to tell where they're going at the longer ranges. So shorter range work, not too bad at all. Now, what's really interesting with them ricocheted ones, I'm going to get you some close-ups of the ricocheted ones that we've caught. Hopefully you can see there's 2 pellets that are collected out of the foam. These are ones that ricocheted off the anvil. They've deformed heavily on hitting that steel. It looks as if they've lost an awful lot of energy by that point. If you were hit by a ricochet, you're definitely going to want eye protection, especially if you're using these around farm buildings and things like that. But I certainly don't think that they're going to ricochet as badly as them gold-plated Gamos. So certainly a little bit safer. I've got some here. Here you can see some of the ones that were shot at 45 yards. Now, at the 45-yard range, they didn't have enough energy retained to actually punch into that lead backstop. So clearly they're losing a lot of energy very quickly. They were just in the bottom of my lead-lined pellet trap. And I'm just going to grab the pellet trap so you can have a look inside there as well, because it's really interesting, the pellet strikes. All of these have got defined rifling marks on them, so they're obviously soft enough to be deformed on that blast of air and actually seal into the barrel, which is a good sign. Certainly not great that they're not imparting enough energy into your target at 45 yards to stick in the lead. However, they're not coming back towards you, so pretty safe. Not particularly great for pest control at that sort of range, but I certainly wouldn't recommend that in any case. Hopefully you can see here, these ones are really well stuck in. So these are the 25-yard ones, little cloverleaf groups. You can see them stuck on top of each other. Now here, hopefully you can see that, these are the indents from them pellet strikes at 45 yards. Now, they didn't retain enough energy to actually stick into that lead like these ones at 25 yards did, and then of course the pellets dropped into the bottom. On the whole, I really don't want to be swapping over to lead-free unless I absolutely have to. However, of all of the lead-free pellets that I've tested so far, both types of H&Ns that I've now used have been probably the best of the bunch. None of them are likely to retain any energy past 30 yards for safe and humane pest control. Target shooting, no chance really. of the lot that we've tested so far, the H&N FTT greens are probably your safest and most accurate bet for shorter range stuff. So I think that'll do it for this one, guys. I will catch you in the next one.